Have you noticed that sometimes in the gospel, Jesus gives very mysterious and enigmatic answers when they request him something or when they make a comment? Sometimes Jesus appears to be saying things that are disconnected with the other person. The most outstanding example to me from the gospel is his interview with Nicodemus in John chapter 3. Do you remember how it goes? It's so disconnected that it's even funny. Nicodemus comes up to Jesus and he says, Lord, I am sure that you're a prophet from God because those signs that you work, no one else can do them. And Jesus tells Nicodemus, if you're not born again, you can't see the kingdom of heaven. I imagine Nicodemus looking at Jesus going like, okay, what do I do with that? And today in the gospel, it's a little bit similar too. The disciples come up to Jesus and they say, increase our faith. And Jesus says, if you had just a little faith, you could do great things. But then Jesus starts speaking about something that seems completely unrelated. He says, imagine that a servant goes out to work, he comes back home, the master won't serve him, the servant will have to serve the master. And when I read the gospel, I was like, what is Jesus talking about? But you know what's the good news? That everything that Jesus says is coherent and connected. What really matters is to discover and to make that connection. And you will see that the connection is there and is beautiful and is clear and is necessary for our lives. Because Jesus really is speaking about faith. Let me lay out the connection very easily. Jesus is saying, if you have faith, you will do great works. Even if you have a little faith, you'll do great works. And then he's saying, once you did those great works, remind yourself that you're a useless servant and you only did what you had to do. Let me repeat this. Jesus says, it's enough for you to have a little faith to do great things. But once you did those great things, don't attribute yourself that glory, but rather call yourself a useless servant. I'm going to give you an example from the life of the saints. And you will see how the saints really incarnate everything that the gospel lays out, specifically this passage. Let's think about a saint that I think is really admirable. A saint close to us in time. Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, with her faith, she did great works. When I've read biographies of her, I was always struck by the fact that when Mother Teresa died, her religious order had over 2,000 nuns spread throughout the whole world. She was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and over 20,000 people in India converted to Catholicism because of her testimony and her life. See, she had a little faith and she did great works. But you know what Mother Teresa said? She said, I'm nothing but a pen in the hand of God. I'm nothing but a pencil in the hand of God. So you see how she brings together the gospel? She had little faith, did great works, but once she had done those great works, she said, I'm nothing but a pencil in the hand of God. In other words, she's saying, I'm an unprofitable servant who only did what she had to do. How do we apply this to our life? How do we relate this to our life? I think the application is really clear. Lay people like yourselves, you have so many opportunities to put into practice little faith. I'll give you an example. For couples that are married, to practice natural family planning. To me, that requires faith. Because in a world where things are getting so expensive, where people who don't have faith have one child or two childs, to have 9 kids or 8 kids or 5 kids because you have faith in God, to me that's putting your small amount of faith and doing great works. But you know what's also true? That once those families had a beautiful large family, what do they have to say? I am a useless servant. I only did what I had to do. Because it could happen that once you have a beautiful family and your kids are Catholic, everybody's praising you and you go like, I'm such a wonderful Catholic. It's so amazing the things that I do. But you're called to say, I'm a useless servant. I only did what I had to do. I'll give you a different example. One of the commandments of the church is to rest on Sunday. And to rest on Sunday also requires faith. Why? Because it means that in our busy world where we're always running behind with the things we want to do, they're telling you, you got to take 24 hours to do nothing. Well, not to do nothing, to rest in the Lord. And it requires faith because our natural instinct is, but Monday's really busy, so I want to get things going on Sunday just to win some time. But you know what's the beauty? When you put in the little faith, God does great works through you. I'll give you a beautiful story that I heard. I went to a conference and Scott Hahn was talking, and he said that when he was a Protestant minister, he took very seriously with a small group that he led resting on Sunday. And he said, this sounds incredible, but we ought to believe Scott Hahn. He said that when he made his fellow students rest on Sunday, their grades got better. When they had less time to study, because they honored what was due to God, they got better grades. So look, little faith, great works. How do you respond? I'm nothing but a useless servant. I'm only doing what I had to do. So let me finish the homily with this question. Where is God calling you to put that little faith in your life, to make your life a little different? What is that small step in faith that God is calling you to put? Is it resting better on Sunday? Is it better being more faithful to naturally family planning? Is it being more faithful to your tithing? Remember, if you put that little faith, I assure you that God will work great things for you, through you. But once you see those great things working through you, what do you have to say? I'm a useless servant. I'm only doing what I was supposed to.